how it's gonna go. We are going to start with the mayoral candidate debate, and that's very simple. We're gonna have one question per candidate. Each candidate has drawn a random number between 1 to 4 in their envelope. Depending on the number is the question that we will ask them. They will have 3 minutes to speak on the question, and then their 3 remaining candidates will each have 2 minutes to respond. And each candidate will also have 1 minute for a rebuttal if it is required. For the councillor candidates, all these people, all these people, there are 16 of them, so each councillor candidate is going to be given 2 minutes to present their key elements from their platforms relating to sport and rec. And that's the key, folks. Tonight it's about sport and rec. Our good friends at the Aurora Chamber of Commerce held one about business, so this is all about sport and rec. So we're going to focus in on that for tonight. I'm going to ask a very serious first question to mayoral candidates. It's baseball season. What would be your walk-up song?
Walk-up song would be "Taking Care of Business."
Oh, I like that. Taking care of business.
Probably would be Queen's "We Are the Champions."
Look at you, very confident. I like that.
I'm a Jays fan.
I'm a Jays fan, unfortunately. Jays, okay.
Aerosmith, Walk This Way.
This way.
Put me in Coach Center Field by John Fogerty.
Oh, I like it. I like it. So, Jeff, Aurora's population is currently at 58,000 people, and it's expected to grow to 90,000. At 58,000 residents, the demand for pool, field, and gym space is exceeding the supply. This issue will only compound as our population grows. As mayor, what will you do to ensure our community has the facilities it needs to stay active at all ages and to deliver on the promise of becoming Canada's most active community?
The work that we've been doing in council this term is to increase the land that we have in service and the facilities we have in service. So we purchased the Hallmark lands, as most people know, because we have shortage and assigned baseball fields to those. We have shortage of facilities. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan has identified a shortage of about 150 hectares or slightly over 300 acres of community park space, community needs space. Now, that's in our official plan of 2010. I think our next official plan may change that number, but the reality is that we do have a shortage of space. We have to not only hold on to the land that we have to look at ways that we can obtain new land. And as most people know, we've been working with Infrastructure Ontario, partnering with the provincial government to do a deal on the Bloomington lands, the lands up in behind Cardinal Carter and the Catholic Board office. We have moved forward with a motion from one of our councillors on looking at a new multi-use facility. We have also been in talks, and the CAO and I have been to King. We've gone to King to have a discussion with Mayor Pellegrini and their CAO as to how we maybe might joint venture on a project. And they've been talking to Seneca College as well. We need to start to think a little bit differently as to how we are going to work with the facilities we have. We've been working much more closely with the school boards this year to use some of their facilities, and they use our facilities. So if we have a project like Maximilian Colby, the artificial turf field that we put in there, that was a great opportunity for the town to split the cost in a project which works for the board, works for the school from 8 to 4, and works for us from 4 to probably 9 and on the weekends. So it's a great opportunity to step back, look at some creative ways that we can put these projects together, look at ways that we can bring more efficiencies to our facilities, and thereby provide a better level of service at a more effective cost to the residents. And one of the areas that we certainly want to move towards, one of the areas that I want to move towards, is how can we better use the facilities we have now. So if you look at the ARC, the SARC, or the FLC, they're pretty empty during the day. We need to get more creative with how we can do that. And I think if we look at it that way, we can meet the needs as we move forward without a huge expenditure of tax dollars.
Personally, I think that over time, politicians, elected officials have been short-sighted when they look at facilities, and they look at the now instead of looking at to the future, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Perfect example is our shortfall on gymnasiums. We are currently in a deficit of 3 gymnasiums, and that's from our master plan. So what I did is I actually put forward a motion this term to have that gymnasium built at the SART, which was supposed to be built back when the SART was built, but it was taken out of that plan. Now, when I speak of the short-sightedness, that's where it falls in regards to that gym was taken out. At the time, it would have cost around $2 million, $2.5 million to build. Now, when we're going to look at building it now, it's going to cost us $4 million. So because of that short-sightedness, it's going to cost the taxpayers more. So when we look at building our future facilities, we need to look at how do we look to the future for our future generations to make sure that enough is there for them to be able to participate and have the opportunities to participate. So I think that that's what we're going to do moving forward, and as your mayor, that's what I will push for and make sure that this council looks to the future, not just today.
There's a number of things that the town could be doing. I mean, there is a lack of facilities, and I think all of us can agree on that we don't have the playing fields, we don't have the built infrastructure that the experts would tell us that we need. But there's a couple of other things I think we need to be looking at as a town as well, and as sports organizations. And that is, what should the town be doing? How can the town help people of all ages who don't want to join, don't have the ability to join, or just aren't interested in joining an organized team, an organized league, but really want to do some things that in a unorganized way. And I can think back to probably most of us in this room playing hockey that was organized by the kids on the street, playing move-up baseball organized by kids on the street, without a lot of formal structure in place. We need, I think, to not only make sure that we have the built facilities in place and adequate numbers. I mean, we've known about, council's known about a shortage of land for well over 8 years, and we haven't made enough progress in fulfilling that. But we also need to look beyond more land, more buildings. We need to get creative. We need to think outside of that proverbial box and figure out what can we do for kids who just want to go outside and play, and parents who don't want to always have to have their children driven somewhere. That and again, not just children. All of us need to get out from behind computers and TVs and move around some more. So what can we all do? What can the town do to facilitate that, to help promote that type of healthy lifestyle? So yes, we need the buildings. A lot of these things should have been built many years ago. They haven't been. We should have deals in place already with Whitchurch, Stouffville, with King Township, with Newmarket. We didn't. We need to do more of that.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, the master plan calls for solutions. One is repurposing. So we have fields that have mixed use, say like Major Park, that were 2 ball diamonds built in the 60s. And we can really do something special by repurposing that for our needs that have been identified. And it also would lead to tourism and revitalizing the downtown. So we have to kind of think good planning when we do make decisions. That includes sport tourism. Of course, engaging our organization is key. Partnering with other, with educational schools, there's lots of land there. And, the new Bayview High School would be a perfect example. We should be involved there and saying, you know what, we would like to put in a gymnasium or maybe 2. When we talk about gymnasiums, we need to have 2 gymnasiums together, and that would attract tournament play for volleyball, which is, we have an exceptional volleyball organization here, recognized throughout the province, but unfortunately they can't hold tournaments here. They've identified having 2 gymnasiums, 3 gymnasiums, and that's what we would have if we developed the Bloomington lands and acquired that land. We've identified Bloomington lands. We've worked with the province, and we're at a standstill. I think we could do better. So we would acquire that and put in maybe 2-3 gyms along with many of the other facilities. It should be inclusive. We should analyze our demographics. The seniors are now involved in pickleball. So there's a lot of research that needs to be done to make the proper decisions before we invest. We don't want to be hasty. So these should all be taken into effect. I think inclusivity and accessibility is very important. I think passive activities, Mr. Ballard spoke to, like road hockey, but also our trail systems and biking are also excellent ways we should encourage people to walk our towns, to the GO station, et cetera, et cetera.
I think one of the things we can look at is how we can strategically, take some of those trails and pave them. So that could be part of our active transportation system. Part of the Nikita Trail is an example. So the lake-to-lake trail system, that might be an opportunity to pave it, have it as a bike trail for transportation to and from the train station, as an example. So I think we have a lot of opportunities to work with the sporting community, with Sport Aurora, to move forward on that. And certainly in terms of being active, Activate Aurora has worked extremely successfully with the schools. The elementary schools are on board, making incredible progress in getting our kids active. I see that it tends to be generational. I see us moving forward on those items and keep moving that ball forward so we all get more active.
Aurora has, perhaps one of the best trails planned in all of Ontario, but we have really let it go. We have not demanded enough of developers, and we ourselves haven't been creative enough in completing some of our trails. And I can point to a few places around town where we should have done more over the past few years. Council should have done more over the past few years, but hasn't. We need to really work hard to build out that active transportation network.
Good planning for the future. Good planning pays. I had introduced a motion this term for an outdoor sports field strategy. This is employed in other municipalities that have recognized they have a shortfall. That was defeated with this council. So one of the things I would do if elected mayor, I would bring it back to the new council and hope that they're a little more receptive to investing in good planning.
I think that the town has done a phenomenal job in providing those trails for this community, and I think if you ask anyone in our community, they will say that we have the best trails in all of York region, if not in the GTA. I think we've done a great job on that, and so I find it somewhat puzzling to hear that our trails are not good, because I frequently go through them, and every resident does, and I think that they can say that they are the best in the all of GTA. So thank you.
It's the following. Sport tourism, Tom, is a fast-growing sector of the global travel and tourism industry and equates to $7.68 billion. It draws in participants, their families, and their fans, contributing to tourism and to local economies. Do you support Aurora becoming a sport destination? And if so, how do you intend on putting Aurora on the sport tourism map?
And how will I go about doing that? Well, first and foremost, I think everyone needs to understand that we have a high quality amount of talent within our town. When you look at, and I've been through many of our kids that have grown up, we have Ethan Kelman that's playing basically baseball down in the States, had on a scholarship. We have Andrew Nemhard, who is probably one of the top point guards in all of North America. These kids have been raised within the programs in our town and have been developed. We need to be able to provide them opportunities, not only to other kids to be able to develop, but for them to come back here and actually provide programming to teach our young kids, to teach them how they can get just to that same level. And so I think that we do that by providing some of the facilities that we need. And one of my motions that I put forward is for a center of excellence. And I believe that it should be within that downtown core. With G.W. Williams moving, I think it's an excellent opportunity for us to partner with the school board, put a center of excellence in that area that can provide the opportunities for all our kids, seniors, all our residents to be able to go there, be active, and to learn the skills that they need for future generations as far as leadership skills, everything. Sports teaches kids an incredible amount of talent, gifts, and it's very important that we provide those facilities, and I think that providing that facility will create an atmosphere for that sports tourism that will allow people to come into our town, focus within our downtown core, help revitalize. It ticks off many boxes, and so that's part of the program, the policies that I would put forward in developing a sport tourism package.
Well, of course, sports tourism is a great economic driver, and it is an opportunity here for Aurora. We have an excellent downtown walking community that offers great amenities like the cultural center, our library, the town park, of course, the armory. What we have to do is draw people to those amenities, and none is better than putting sport tourism features in our downtown core. The first thing I would do is put 2 ball diamonds in Major Park right behind all the shops and stores, and then put 2 soccer pitches in Fleury Park. So now you have tournaments right in our downtown. We have to do something with the Howard Johnsons. That would be key in developing. We would acquire that property, work with developers, and bring it back. So now you have the whole picture. You have a place where visitors can reside, and you have the facilities and people. You have a walking community where they could, imagine if you could drive into Howard Johnson's, leave your car there for the weekend, walk to the Ball Diamonds, walk to the shops, and then the next morning go to the farmer's market, perhaps catch a show later in the evening. That's what draws sport tourism. The people that come and visit our town would say that's the best place to go. Let's go back to Aurora if we have an opportunity, because it's got a great destination to it. So we have to plan a whole picture. They have to have the amenities, the shops and stores, and of course our BIA and our chamber would be consulted, as well as all the users and organizations. So in conclusion, I would be looking forward to planning out, being fiscally responsible, and improving the lives for the people here in Aurora and those that come to visit.
You know, sport tourism is it's a great idea, a really good idea. My question would be, and I would support it. I certainly support it in principle, and I support it in action. The question I would have is, how do we get Aurora to a point where we become a sports tour destination? And that's the hurdle. We don't have the infrastructure in this town just yet to be a sport destination. We don't have a place for families to come for a weekend, a place to stay. We have no hotel. They do come for an event. They go to Newmarket, they go to Richmond Hill. That's where they go back to buy their meals and to fill their car with gasoline. There's a lot more to this issue than simply saying, I believe in sport tourism. It's a very complex program. It should perhaps go hand in hand with building a cultural tourism program as well, because both groups will share amenities. Both groups need hotels. Thankfully, Aurora has some great restaurants and some great walking capacity to fill there. But this is more than saying, yeah, let's do it. We have to plan this out properly, and we have to, as a community, be prepared to invest significant dollars in making sure we have the facilities. And perhaps there are people in Aurora who won't buy into that. So we have to do a lot of grassroots work. We have to listen to the taxpayers, to people, to see what they like to do. But I think overall, whether it be cultural tourism or sports tourism, it's good for Aurora. I would certainly support it.
It's good to see that we're all in favor of sports tourism. It's a business, it's a great business. I thought it was slightly closer to $8 billion, but it's an incredible business. It was a priority of the sport plan that council worked on and developed. One of the key elements in the sport plan was the concierge program. The concierge program is an opportunity to help sporting groups organize those tournaments, not to run the tournament itself. Sports groups do an incredibly good job of organizing the tournament. We can step up and provide help to those organizations with some logistic additions, some logistic help. So as an example, we have a number of teams coming to town. How do we organize restaurants so they're not, you only have 5 or 6 teams descending on one restaurant at the same time? Interfacing with bylaw. We have a soccer tournament on this weekend. Don't go crazy giving out tickets. I think those are areas that we can focus on and help the sport groups themselves with moving forward on their tournaments. We have to, I think, look at risk mitigation. These tournaments are put on by volunteers. Volunteers put up their time, their effort, and sometimes their cash. Is there an opportunity for us to assist them with some risk mitigation so they're more inclined to come out and do those those projects, come out and do those tournaments? Sports tourism is a destination event. People want to come here, which is one of the reasons we move forward on the 2 baseball diamonds in the Hallmark lands. That's one of the reasons why at Regional Council I actually got them to move on development charges. We actually have hotels coming in. We're moving forward on that. We are bringing those elements into play. I've got a whole list of notes here. I figured sports tourism come up, so maybe I'll have an opportunity to expand on that a bit more. Thank you.
We have an incredible soccer pitch over at the SARC. We developed a artificial turf soccer pitch, which is probably the envy of all of York Region, and it houses the semi-pro league. And so we are starting down the path of tourism. We've developed that within our town. As was mentioned, the Hallmark lands, even though I disagreed with the decision, and I believe that it should have been one multi-purpose field with one baseball diamond. It is 2 baseball diamonds as now, and will help promote tourism within the baseball community. So we are starting on that path, but we've got to continue. And part of that continuing is for how can the town help the organizations? How do we help them get those tournaments into our town? And that's done by the mayor sitting down with the heads of all the organizations and speaking to them and understanding what are their needs. What do you need as an organization for us to be able to provide those opportunities to get those tournaments into our town, to help your organizations develop those tournaments? That's what we need from a mayor. We need a strong mayor advocating for every organization, all the sports.
In Ontario, Canada, actually, culture and sport is about a $53 billion business. And of that, sport is about a $2 billion part of that. So we need to develop destination, we need to develop them together in Aurora. They will need the same sort of infrastructure, they'll need the same sort of things for folks to do. I would like to see these things develop, destination tourism develop, not in isolation, because there will be so much overlap. There's no reason to pay for a sport destination study and a cultural destination study when there is so much overlap. So that's my perspective right now. 53 billion in culture and sport, only 2 billion of that is sport. We need to build the two together.
Thank you very much. I think we have to understand the demographics with the increased aging boomers, as they say. Pickleball is the #1 growing sport. We should provide facilities for that. Those tournaments would be held mostly during the day. It's interesting to hear about investment, and I appreciate that, but I've proposed a revolving investment fund where we would use the money, use it to develop on a short-term loan and put the money back in, and then we would be able to reinvest it in another project. Doing the Howard Johnson is an excellent example of that. It's interesting to hear one of the candidates say, how do we help? Well, the first thing we do is we engage. So the idea that the players and coaches would rather play in an industrial park than a centrally located downtown core is the first example of engaging your community. And also, I think people that when they visit would rather come to our downtown core and walk the amenities here rather than driving 2 kilometers away in an industrial park. That's the good decision making we should be
We
making.
need to understand that tournaments are driven from the grassroots. So the Silver Stick tournament by the Central York Girls Hockey League. How do we work with them to continue to make sure they are successful? How do we understand the economics? We engage companies, or we engage bodies like Central Counties Tourism, who actually have metrics that will let us measure what we need to do, what we need to measure, and formulate those intelligent answers so we can actually say, yes, this makes sense, we know this doesn't make sense, and this is how we can move forward and create the economy in a way that's beneficial to all our residents and move forward on developing a sports tourism plan.
Here we go. Sport organizations currently pay over $2 million annually to the town of Aurora to use facilities. Considering sport participation declines when pricing escalates, what measures would you as mayor support to help encourage participation and keep prices low?
And that is at the heart of so much of what the town's going to do. I remember when I sat on town council and I was the chair of our Parks and Rec committee, and we had many a discussion around what we charge for, rink time, soccer pitch time, baseball diamond time, those sorts of things. Every organization, of course, had concerns that they were paying too much and the others not enough. So it was a bit of a balancing act that we had to do. And you're right, the more we charge for something, the less it gets used. So it's a prime concern I've had about the Hallmark lands, for example, that I'm worried that we have a reduction of taxes, a corporate tax base to the town because we're taking those employment lands out of production and putting them into town usage. That costs us all. And what it might mean eventually is that the facilities that are built there end up costing so much that there is little usage. What we need to do, and I've said this in my earlier answer, we need to simply be more creative. We need to work closely with the municipalities around us, all of whom are facing the problems we're facing. We hear about soccer pitches on Bloomington. I know Richmond Hill could use some space. Are we partnering with them? King Township could use some baseball space, perhaps in Snowball Corner. What are we doing to advance that? Whitchurch, Stouffville, the same sort of thing. We need to think innovatively. We can't simply continue to cut checks and build facilities and have Aurora taxpayers carry the burden 100%. We need to figure out how we can share the burden. Are there companies that we might be able to partner with to help us build sports facilities? Are there sponsorship opportunities for these sport facilities? All of these questions, I think, need to be looked at in a more comprehensive way, not sort of the current higgly-piggly, we'll run off here, we'll run off there. We need a very solid approach to working and thinking outside of the box so that our kids, our young adults, and even those of us of a certain age can take advantage of these facilities without costing them too much. And again, at the very end of the day, I will make that plea that we could be doing more, I believe, as a town to provide facilities for unorganized sporting activity, whether it be playing hockey, playing move-up baseball, those things that don't require resources other than a place for kids to play. Ultimately, I think that's what we need to return back to as well, and as many opportunities as possible. But let's think differently here. Let's not keep doing the same old thing, because we just keep getting the same old results.
The idea that if it costs more, we'll get less people turning out, and we don't want that. We need healthy kids. Healthy kids are can make good decisions in a team environment, which means there's less crime and there's less health issues. So the province should recognize the savings, and by doing so could help subsidize some of the costs associated. Our town works with a break-even policy. We charge to break even on the cost. It doesn't always work with some of the facilities like hockey, but we should look at more investing in our own children and maybe change that balance so that the number one line is to get more people involved. In Finland, any activity is free. A child merely walks to a facility and signs up and they're in. So that's the ultimate. There's no charge. We have to find that creative way to find that balance so that we're not turning people off. Hockey, for example, is losing because it's so expensive. Other sports like soccer are relatively inexpensive. But we should really be providing those facilities at the least amount of cost. And if that means applying a less charge and finding revenue somewhere else and having the province recognize the benefits to their costs, then I think that's one of the great ways we can go forward.
During this term, we've actually looked at partnering with other municipalities. We looked at partnering with corporations. We've also looked at sponsorship. One of our councillors, Councillor Tom, who's not running for re-election again, but he put forward a motion in regards to sponsorship for us to look for those active ways that we can create more revenue so that way we can lower those user fees and we can provide those more opportunities for not just for the children, but also for our seniors, for all residents. We gotta remember, it's not just about the kids, it's about all our residents. All of you need a place to go to stay active at the end of the day. We need to look at the province and the federal government in regards to funding possibilities. We haven't done a good job on that, and as your mayor, I will make sure and ensure that we go out and we look for every possible way that we can get any grant, any funding from any level of government to bring in those dollars to make sure that we can make things cheaper for you, so we're not using your tax dollars straight out of your pocket.
Sport affordability is more than fees. Fees are obviously an important part. As a parent who had children in sports, I can certainly appreciate that the fees go up, my costs go up. But it's a deeper issue. We need to understand what the root causes are. We need to understand what drives people not coming out for sport. It is a shame that children cannot play sports in Aurora. And quite frankly, I think as a town that's affluent as Aurora, is totally unacceptable that children or adults or anyone else cannot come out and participate in sport. So how do we address that? What do we do about that? There's a number of areas that have been talked about. I agree with thinking outside the box. The town offers charitable tax receipts. As a corporation, can we partner with someone to offer them charitable tax receipts so we can do that? We have a great partnership with Canadian Tire Jumpstart administered by the town. Great partnership with Sport Aurora through All Kids Can Play that we support through the Mayor's Golf Tournament. Opportunities exist. We just need to think creatively. We're doing it now. We need to get more creative, and we need to keep working with organizations like Sport Aurora as to how we can benefit all our residents, how we can get everyone more active, because indeed, an active society is a more healthy society.
I guess what I wanted to say is I've heard virtually all the candidates here say the same thing, that, you know, we've tried this, we've tried that, we've done this, we've done that. But I look at it and say, yes, but without great result. The creative, innovative thinking that we require, the deal making with other municipalities around us. Don't tell me we've been talking to them. Show me the results, show me the partnerships, and I'll believe that we've actually done something. I think we're all getting tired of having the same promises being made and nothing being delivered on.
So we have to try something innovative. We have to look where it is successful. We often talk about the great things that Scandinavia does. If that's a model where we're trying to get inclusivity, so everyone can afford to play, regardless of their ability and regardless of their income. And we have to do new ways, because I agree, this way is not necessarily working. We're not creating any traction. So I think it's getting funding from the province, finding efficiencies in energy plans, and using those savings to fund back in for physical activity for our residents and our children. And let some actions be done rather than just talk about it.
If some were around Aurora for the last 4 years, they would understand what we've been doing for the last 4 years. So we are moving forward. We have created some partnerships, and we are moving towards those goals. So it's unfortunate some haven't been around, but we'll continue to move forward as you mentioned.
Right, John, so 3 of you have spoken publicly supporting the concept of some type of sport and recreation development board, whose role it would be to consult, collaborate, and inform town council of emerging sport and recreation needs. Can you clarify this new board's role and specifically tell us if this will replace the current Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Advisory Committee and perhaps the organization that is hosting tonight's event?
I would be in favor of putting such a board together, but it has to have one provision. It has to represent all the sports. It has to be the one voice. So everyone buys in, all sport organizations do. We can't exist as we do right now, where our number one enrollment in soccer is not part of the sports Aurora community. So it has to start with that, first of all. Secondly, if we're going to have a development board, like we've just started with the Economic Development Board, we have to utilize it. So in the Hallmark lands, for instance, this is employment land, and the Economic Development Board has a strategic action plan that is looking for a parcel of land, much like Parks and Rec were looking for a parcel of land. And we never even bothered utilizing that economic board. So if we're going to have a sport and board, we're going to have to use it. We've got to make that commitment. No point just having it and then never utilizing it and making poor decisions on without at least consulting with them. So should we have a paid employee looking after the development of sport? I do believe that's critical. We should, and we should be working with a one voice for all sport organizations and develop what it will be a long-term vision and range, and to find efficiencies and to make the best decisions based on good planning. And that is sorely missing. We don't want mismanagement. We don't want to just say, let's put a gymnasium here and not look down the road and say, well, wait a minute. We're looking at Bloomington Lands and putting in 3 there. And we've talked to volleyball, basketball. They don't want just a single gym. They would like 2 or 3. Put something on, put us on the map. So that's why it's critical to engage in the board and to develop those synergies and do the best planning in the long run for our community.
I'm not convinced that we need a standalone board with a paid staff member. I think there are a number of things we can do to get the right information to council so that it can make the right decisions. We have some good sport organizations in this town right now. The one thing that John said that I absolutely believe in, we need a unified sports body in this town. And as mayor, that would be one of the first things that I would want to work toward, because divisiveness isn't good for any of us here in Aurora. Having said that, and I know I chaired our Parks and Recreation Committee, we had representatives from sporting teams on it, but not all teams because there's many of them. We need to do a far better job as a town in communicating and listening regularly and with purpose to all citizens, but for Parks and Rec, to our sport organizations. We need to do it in a methodological way that gets us the information we need. I don't think we need to build a new level of bureaucracy, quite frankly, in a town of some 60,000 people. That may be fine for a big city, but not in a town of our size. We simply need to do a better job of getting what resources we have organized. We need to do a better job of listening to the experts that are out there. We've heard time and again how sport-intensive Aurora is, how many experts we have here, and it's true. We have some phenomenal people living here, coaching here, organizing here. We just need to listen to them in a more effective and thorough way.
With the fact that developing a sport development board, I think it's the way to go to unify all sports organizations. As I said many times, we need to represent all organizations within our town and provide them the opportunities. I think at the end of the day, though, it goes one step further. And how we do that is that the mayor, in my opinion, sits down with the organizations on a quarterly basis with the heads of each organization and has conversations with them to understand what they actually need and what they want to get the best available opportunities within our town. That's how you create a cohesive, collaborative environment with all our organizations. It's about representing them, about hearing them. And it's not just the mayor. I might remind everyone here, it's about all these people too sitting up here. Because each one of them that you elect as well is going to be representing what you want to happen in sports organizations. And we need to work as a team to be able to provide that collaboration and work and listen to each one of those organizations. And under my leadership, I promise that I will be meeting with each and every one of those heads of the organizations on a quarterly basis throughout the 4 years.
Aurora right now. It's called Sport Aurora. Sport Aurora has garnered over the last 4 or 5 years over $1 million in grant money that's come directly to our community. Grant money that supported the organization itself, grant money that supported Activate Aurora, grant money that started the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, which has quickly gained an incredible reputation. We have an organization that is made up of volunteers that is not a body that excludes anyone. It costs you $25 to join Sport Aurora. So if an organization chooses not to join Sport Aurora, I would suggest that's an issue between that organization and Sport Aurora. I think that we already do that. Quick math says if I sat down with the head of every sporting organization, there's over 40 sporting organizations, that would be 1/12 of my year, 1 month a year, and talking to the sporting organizations. It's not necessarily a good thing, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a reality. And that's how much time it would take. We have, again, I will go back, an incredibly effective organization that I believe represents their members extremely well. They do that in a very respectful and democratic manner. I go to their general meetings, their annual general meetings. They have developed a number of other programs that have come out of that. I think they've done a terrific job, and I have no idea what this sport body, this other sport body would do, how they would constitute themselves, or how they would work.
I think it's important that we are engaged, and the role of the development board, or Sport Aurora, as Jeff had said, is critical because it can do a lot of the work for council, and that's what council relies on, staff to do research, to do engagement. A big mistake is not listening to the end users or the players. No one in the Hallmark asked the parents and the kids where they would rather play, and that was a huge miss. No options were presented to them. Would you like to play downtown in the centrally located, where the shops? or would you like to go to an industrial park? So there's no point if council's not listening to the board, and if the council is not listening and engaged with the people that are actually using the facilities. So we need to use a development board, but we have to listen, and we really have to be engaged with the sports users.
Simply reiterate what I said earlier on a couple of times. If the town is to move towards a board, one of the largest portions of Aurora culture is sports. It is part of our cultural makeup, and I would like to investigate, I would like to hear from those people involved in our heritage, in our cultural activities, in our sporting activities, how we can best work together to promote all of their interests, quite frankly. Again, in a town of 60,000 people, I think we're getting tired and a little worried about one-offs that's going to cost us a lot of money. I like the idea of looking at sports and culture together, whether it be tourism, whether it be facilities, or whatever. I'll simply end by saying, in my experience, we have to make sure we do a better job consulting the public. We have to do it constantly. We have to communicate regularly, and we have to communicate with purpose. That's not being done.
Is making time to meet with the residents, meet with the organizations, do what you gotta do to make sure that you hear from everyone so you can help them. Because that's the job of the mayor, that's the job of the council, is to create an atmosphere where we help our community get better. And so I will make that time for every single one of you.
What I just want to finish off with saying is that we have moved forward with a very successful organization. We have an organization that has done things like Activate Aurora. Activate Aurora, where we're working with our kids to get them more active. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I think that's a good thing. They have worked incredibly hard to do that. I still have no concept of what this board would do. I haven't heard anything. I'm hearing inconsistencies from candidates. We spent too long talking about this. We're not having any action. Oh, we can't move on that. We need to talk about it. Let's have some consistency. Let's get some facts. Let's understand what we're asking. Let's understand how we want to go forward. And let's be realistic.